Hello everyone, welcome back to BlenderDiplom.com. I'm Gottfried Hofmann and this tutorial is about a really cool new add-on for Blender that has been developed by Jacques Lucke and it's called Sniper. You can get it off BlenderDiplom.com and it's about creating really cool motion graphics like for example lyrics videos or explanation videos in a very short amount of time. You can get it off BlenderDiplom in the download section, and there is add-on Sniper camera automation. And when you download it, use right-click Save As because it is a zip file and you need this zip file. You can also go to the GitHub profile of Jacques Lucke and download Sniper from there. You will get always to the latest release. And once again, right-click and Save Link As to get the complete zip file, because you shouldn't unpack it. Then, when you're in Blender, just go to File, User Preferences, Add-ons, and start from File. Go to the zip file and select it, sniper.zip, and install from File. Here, simply click onto this box to activate it, and then go to the File tab. And here under Auto Execution, you need to enable Auto Run Python scripts, because otherwise you won't be able to use the files you created with Sniper later on, because they are using drivers and drivers need auto-run Python scripts. Then you just select Save User Settings. You need this for the setting here, and then you close the user preferences. The Sniper settings are hiding behind the Animation tab, and there you have Add Target Camera, Separate Text, and Text to Name. I will first show you what the bottom two buttons are doing, and then I will show you the most important button, that is Add Target Camera. Let me delete the default cube with X and add some text with Shift-A text. Then I go to Top View and the text will be Add-on Sniper. And I used Enter and Tab. So I have just one text file with 2 lines in it. And when I click Separate Text, I get 2 text files, 2 text objects, and they already got the names that I've written in them. So it already named them accordingly to the content of the text file. The object got the same name. So let me just put this here. And I want another text object. So let me duplicate the Sniper. And I will call this tutorial. But on the right, you see it's not called tutorial in the outline. It's called sniper.001. And that's not cool. So I simply click text to name and it's called tutorial. So this function is also very handy when you duplicate text yourself and want it to get the name of exactly what you typed in the text field. Now, let me select them all together with Shift and right click, all 3. And now when I hit Add Target Camera, it will create a new camera, and the camera will move along all the objects that I had selected before. So, Add-on Sniper Tutorial. Here you got the effect. So, this is it. Mostly everything else now is tweaking. And the tweaking can be done in the new tab you see here. That's called Sniper. Here it also reads Settings are in Sniper tab. And here we got quite a lot of settings that are all meant to tweak the animation. First, let's take a look at this box here. It reads Add-on Sniper Tutorial. So these are the names of the target objects. And I can add new ones, so I don't need to delete everything and re-add everything. I simply can add and remove targets on the fly. So let me do this here. Let me simply duplicate add-on. And this will be called Blender. So, and let me add new target from selection. And now this is a little bit not as exactly as what I wanted, because Blender will be at the end of the animation now. So Here it is tutorial, and here the animation has ended. So it starts with Addon, then Sniper, then tutorial, and in the end it heads over to Blender. But I want Blender to be at the beginning of the animation, and I can change things simply by using those arrows here. So let me go upwards, and now this Blender is at the very beginning. And then we have Addon and so on. And I can also remove targets here in the menu by simply clicking on this X here. And I've done this with Blender, and now you see that the object is still there. It has only removed the target, which is basically this empty attached to the object. So I can now do changes to the objects like text to name and re-add it and move it back up. This little field up here will tell you at which place in any animation you are. For example, right now I'm somewhere between the second and the third target, so I'm somewhere between Addon and Sniper, and this is actually correct. And you can also travel through the different targets, which comes in really handy when you got a more elaborate scene where the targets are far away from each other. I can also change the timing of the targets, because right now it's always the same amount of time where the camera is standing still and the same amount of time it's moving. And for this, I simply click on Manipulate Timing. This will open up a dope sheet, unless one is already open. And there you got an animation data block with an action called Travel. And this is where you can change the timing. For example, at the beginning, nothing is moving, and then we come into the area where still nothing is moving, but the dark part is actually the area where we really want nothing to move. So let me move this to the beginning, and now recalculate, and now it's not standing still so long at the beginning anymore. And basically the dark parts are the parts where the camera is standing still, and the parts in between are the parts where it's moving. Unless for the end, of course, because at the end there is no new target, so it will stand still forever. And here we can change, for example, the amount of time the camera is standing at a certain place. For example, I wanted to stay still at Sniper a little longer, so I will just make this longer, and then I want to move it to tutorial pretty quickly. So I will make the amount of frames where it's moving a lot shorter. Now I need to hit recalculate, because otherwise the animation won't change. This is just dummy stuff up here. Recalculate. And now let's look at the animation. It's moving, it's moving, it's staying. And now things are going pretty fast. But let me undo this and do another change. I will just go to the first frame, AA, and S, and scale it down a little bit. Recalculate, and now we should have a little faster an animation. And we have changed the timing of the animation, but we did not change the movement in between two targets. But we can also change that, and we can do this by clicking on one of the targets, and then you'll see here an extra box. Here it reads Addon, which is the name of the target, and 2 because it is the second one. And here again 2 settings, slow in and slow out. You can also think about this as ease in and ease out. And these settings will determine how soft the animation of the camera starts and ends. So slow in is before it reaches Addon, and slow out is once it flies away from Addon. 1 is perfectly smooth, and 0 is perfectly abrupt with no smoothness at all. So let me say 0 and 0 to show you the effect, and now recalculate. And now we got Blender, bang, Addon. And from Addon, very abrupt to Sniper. And I can show you a really interesting effect. I have copy to all, which will basically copy the settings to every target. And now it will look a little odd because it starts fast and in the middle it's slow and then it's getting faster again. Even like the movement was consisting of 2 parts, and that is because the middle of the animation, of the camera animation, is always smooth. And so, or always with a special kind of keyframe. So 0 and 0 for all targets does not really make sense. But one thing that really makes sense would be 1 and 1. Let me hit copy to all, and now after recalculate we should have a perfectly smooth motion. And we do have it. But one thing I still don't like is that the camera is standing still while being at the targets, and I would like it more to have it a little soft organic movement to the camera. And I can do this by adding a small bit of camera wiggle. This will just add a noise modifier to the camera. So let me add 0.1 in strength, and now we got a subtle movement of the camera, but it's a kind of fast. And this we can change by time scale. At the moment it says 5 wiggles or 5 frames for 1 wiggle iteration, and that's a little fast. I will change it to 20, which is a little less than a second. And now it tells me to recalculate, so I will do. And now I got a very soft and subtle movement here. And one thing that's still here is inertia strength, and we can really make use of it, because at the moment I think with this super smooth movement at this speed it doesn't really fit. And what we can do is we can add inertia, which will basically make the camera bounce at the end instead of standing still. So let me set this to 1. And now it's moving into, and then it's bouncing, and that's looking really strange. It's like it's already has stopped and then it's bouncing, and this is not looking realistically or anyway organic. And the reason for this is that we have set the ease in to 1, or the slow in, and this will make the camera always almost stop when it's reaching the target, and then it makes a bounce. And this of course is not cool, but what we can do is set the slow in to 0.5, copy to all, and then let's also remove the inertia strength a little bit, and now recalculate. And now we have, due to slow in of 0.5, 50% of the motion is still left when it enters the target position, and then it can use this to bounce. So the energy left can be used for bouncing. So this is actually looking pretty good now. And I have shown you all the options we got here. Also manipulate timing, but there's even more to Sniper than just what you see here. Let's go to the end, and I can manipulate the target and the camera will update automatically. For example, let me just move this a few degrees and then change the position. And now you see the camera animation is updating accordingly, which is pretty cool. And what you can do also is, actually the camera is a child of this empty here, which is a child of the target object. So we can change this empty here. For example, we can scale it down and the camera is nearer to the target, or we can scale it up so it is farther away. And we can even move it. So now the end position will be with the tutorial in the top left. And for example, you could put some extra information right here. And it will all update accordingly, which is pretty cool. For example, what we also could do is we could even rotate this and like this, and maybe move it and move it like this, and this would be our end position. So add-on, sniper, and tutorial. So you can still have quite a lot of control thanks to these empties, and if you move the target, the empty will move with it, and thus also the camera. But that's not all. There's a little more I want to show you, and for that I will use a finished project. This is the finished project you have seen in the beginning of the tutorial. It's basically just a black world with white emission material for all the objects, and I gave it a little bit of depth. And thus, when I hit rendered, you see that I'm using depth of field, which is a setting of the camera very down below, here depth of field. And here under aperture, there is size, and size 0 is the default, which will mean no depth of field. And I gave it just a little bit of 0.1. But the focus is always the target, no matter at which place I am. And this is because this cool add-on will add automatically a special focus object for you. This is already here when you enter the settings for depth of field, and the focus will always be the target. So it automatically moves with the camera and sets things up perfectly. And you always also see, for example, here when I move away from tutorial and towards Blender, how cool this is that the focus object will automatically update perfectly. So this is one thing what I like very much about Sniper. It's actually a complete solution for a certain kind of problem in Blender, and it takes away most if not all the work you have to do for creating this kind of video. And in the end, you also see another effect, and this is we have tutorial and then there is Blender, and the camera is actually rotating. How did I do this? Well, this is just how the camera is placed in relation to the objects. Let me down here select local orientation for the object, and here we see that for tutorial the x-axis is to the right, the y-axis is to the top, and the z-axis is facing the camera. And this is how Sniper is setting things up by default. So the camera is looking towards the object, with the object having the x-axis to the right and stuff. And for this object, everything is reversed, except for the y-axis, which is also looking towards the camera, as you can see here. So in the end, the camera is basically rotating, but still looking into the same direction. And you might also notice that at the end of the animation, I'm going to the beginning and again, and the target still stays the same. And this is because I simply added it 2 times to the target list. So you can have an object more than 1 time in the target list, which is pretty cool for creating seamlessly looping animations like this one. The last thing I want to show you is how I set up the compositing for this project. It's basically here under compositing. Let me render this quickly, and you will see that this is rendering pretty far quickly due to the shadeless material. And what I got is simply my normal rendering and a background that I created using an ellipse mask, which I blurred 50% and 50% relatively with fast Gaussian. Then I used color balance to colorize it, making the darker parts even darker, and the midtones bluish, and the brighter parts a little brighter and yellowish to get a nice modern gradient in the background. And I'm mixing this with the original render layer. And I can do this because the render layer is just black and white. So I can mix it on top of the gradient by using the image itself as a factor for the mix. If I wouldn't do this, then we would only have the original image. But because I'm only mixing it at parts where the original image is black, things are looking as if I would use alpha over without using an alpha channel. And you also get a nice effect here in the parts that are not perfectly in focus, because those parts are not completely white. They are more like grayish, and are getting more and more gray the more they are moving to the background, the more you go to the background. And this will create, using this a kind of factor mixing, a kind of dark halo around the parts that are not in focus, and thus they are still a little bit separated from the background, which is an effect I use quite often and I really like. Then at the end, I only added a little bit of lens distortion. And there, no distortion, but only dispersion, 0.05. It's still kind of strong. Maybe you should use a little less so it doesn't look so cheesy. But yeah, the compositing is actually pretty simple. And this is it about the Sniper add-on and about a possible project I have shown you for it. There are more things you can do with Sniper, and BlenderDiplom will bring you more tutorials that will utilize Sniper in the future. So you can see how versatile this add-on really is, because it might look a little specialized, but actually you can do quite a lot of things with it, and it helps you to reduce the amount of work you have to put into your animation. So it's really handy and really cool. A really big thanks to Jacques Lucke for developing this. And I'd like to see what you are doing with the add-on. So if you make a cool motion graphics with it, maybe a lyrics video or something like that, please go to the comments on BlenderDiplom.com and show it either in the comments for the download or in the comments for this tutorial, because I'm always eager to see what you're doing with the things BlenderDiplom is providing. And of course, have fun with Blender and do try this at home.